All right, so I've got Kristin on the line here. Now, I've worked with Kristin probably, I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks ago. We started working, and she was in a pretty difficult situation in her marriage. Kristin, are you there?
I am.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's lovely to have you on the call, and this is just a real opportunity to, I guess, to share your story to some degree. So you can, I've always felt that since the time I've been working with you, I've just really, really admired your approach to transformation. You know, it's been a real inspiration, not only to myself, but I think for a lot of people out there who will hear your story about the progress that you've made and, just the intent that you go ahead with. I think I see a lot of people in, whenever they've gone through challenges such as infidelity, it's very easy to take on that sort of punishment mode. And I think one of the things I've always admired about you is just your intent to serve and your intent to just give from your heart. So it'll be really good if you could just tell us a little bit more about sort of what was happening before we started working together, just so that the listeners can get a bit of an idea of where you were at and the challenges that you were going through.
Of course. So, about 4 or 5 months ago, my husband asked me for a separation, and I was determined not to give up on my marriage or allow him to give up on our marriage so easily.
Mm-hmm.
Then back in July, so a month and a half ago, so almost 8 weeks ago, I found out that he had been having an affair. And at that time, prior to finding that out, I had numerous conversations with him about how we can repair our marriage and, really reflecting on myself and where things went wrong with us. And it wasn't just him. There were a lot of things that I had done to get us to this point where he felt so desperate to, seek the attention of somebody else. And I always maintained the attitude that, well, we got here as a couple and we need to get out of this together as a couple. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things I did was reflect upon myself, knowing that I can't change what he's doing. I can only change what I'm doing. But at this point, I was desperate. I didn't know how to do it. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it, and certainly didn't know where to start. So I turned to the internet, and I found you, Shri, and I'll admit I was skeptical at first. I was not sure, here is this person that comes across my Google search engine, and it was like, wow, halfway across the world. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, and I'm not quite sure if this is legit. So I entered my email knowing that I was going to get some information from in my inbox, and and I let it go a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks before I even responded to you. And I realized that it wasn't just some spam email or an automatic computer responding, that it was a real person. And then you had asked a question of what was going on. And I figured, hey, I have nothing to lose. So I typed a little blurb, gave you some information, and within minutes you responded to me. In fact, I think you may have even tried calling me. And at that point I was like, wow, this has got to be legit. And I didn't know where else to turn at that point. So I responded to you, and we made an appointment to talk. And we talked for, gosh, I want to say almost 45 minutes that first time.
That's right. Yeah.
And immediately I felt like I had somebody that understood my situation and could give me some concrete steps to not only understanding what was going on with my husband, and within our marriage, but some steps that I could actively take to try to turn my situation around. And I think we spoke a couple of times. At one point, I think I had given up, and you were right there and called me immediately and helped me cope with the desperate situation that I was in that moment, which just made me feel grounded in a place, in a moment that I just felt completely out of control. And with the steps, so even though I felt that there was a major setback during that time, your suggestions and recommendations I continued to use consistently, and maintaining my calmness and really just implementing all of the real life strategies and very manageable strategies. I was able to I feel like I was able to physically stop a derailing train on my own. At this point, within the past 3 weeks, my husband has stopped the affair, agreed to reconcile our relationship, and I've seen even major changes within him, and he never even had a conversation with you. So just my actions alone and the things that I can control myself made such a significant impact in turning around our marital situation. I have to actively implement the recommendations and the suggestions that you've given me on a daily basis. But I see that with consistency, it really is making such an impact in improving our marriage and our relationship.
And I think the great thing about what you've said is the fact that it is possible to do it even when the other party's not necessarily even aware of it. And that's not about manipulation or anything like that, but it's just about fundamentally understanding male psychology. And I think when people can really, grasp that, it really is quite incredible, the shifts that you can make. And I really, I think, I'm curious because I know that, there's a lot of promises out there. And I think, the thing I admired is the realness of your situation, the fact that, you've made some fantastic progress. It's not the finished article yet, and I think it's really important to be real about that in terms of, for the people listening to this, that, we're not sitting here and saying, oh, you turned this around in 3 weeks and suddenly it's forever and ever, amen kind of thing. It's a constant work in progress, and I think that's just what relationships are. Even in my own marriage, it's all about every day, continuing to grow it. And I think, what would you say to those individuals who are out there who are sitting there thinking, oh, listen, no, the other party has to come to the party. They have to, they've got to play their part in turning things around. It can't just all be me. What would you say to individuals like that, or who are thinking like that?
That no matter what situation you are in, the only person you can control is yourself. And by making your own changes within yourself, whether your partner decides to be inspired by it or not, whenever you're going through a difficult time, taking care of yourself and self-reflecting and making the changes within yourself will only make you feel better in the situation. And it also gives you some sense of control at times when you feel completely out of control.
Sure.
So I feel that the changes that I've made, granted, my husband and I, we ebb and we flow. We have really great stretches of time, and then we have setbacks. But when we have setbacks, instead of looking at him and the changes that he needs to make, I need to self-reflect and say, okay, what can I do differently next time in this situation? And because that's really the only thing that I have control over. And I can only make myself be the best person that I can be. And that's what I've learned throughout this whole process. And although we seem to be going in a good direction right now, if it turns out that 6 months from now he decides he still wants a separation or he files for divorce, I can't control that. I can only control my reaction to it and know that the changes that I've made for myself, and that I will be okay no matter what.
Absolutely. And not only that, but you've done everything in your power to be able to create the shifts, and then you can just recognize that, okay, well, I've done everything I can, and this is just the outcome that it's, destined to be, or however you want to look at this from a logical or even a spiritual perspective to some extent. So I think, that's exactly right, 100% spot on, and I think we all have to do what we can in terms of what we can control. Control the controllables, as you say, and then from there, it's we almost have to detach from the outcome a little bit to trust that everything's going to unfold in exactly the way it should. But I have no doubts that in such a short space of time, the progress that you guys have made together, and I think it's really important to honor your husband's involvement in this process as well. I mean, he's created some shifts, and I think that's really, really wonderful to see. And look, I think this call, I hope it serves as an inspiration for a lot of people out there just to take action. And that doesn't have to be with me; it can be with anyone. Just taking action with someone so that they can actually make the progress that they need to, because there's nothing greater than having an intimate relationship that sort of transcends boundaries and goes to that next level. It's an incredible experience. And I guess it's my mission to want to help people out there and help women all around the world to be able to have that and create that as much as possible. So I really appreciate your time. I know, I really do believe a lot of people are going to feel inspired after hearing this call. And, I wish you all the best. It's been an absolute privilege and an honor to have served you. And, thank you so much, Kristin. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Shri, because I'm not sure where I would be if I didn't reach out to you and take a chance.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So thank you.
Cool. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.